Hello and welcome to the final part of our EU5 tier list. Once again, thank you to Joshua Fitzgerald for setting up this whole Google Sheets thing for me to use for content's sake. And, well, it's also just a nice reminder for me about the various mechanics. So, again, shout out to Josh there. Thank you very much for setting this up. But anyway, we are going to be looking at the final few mechanics, and there are some pretty big ones coming up, such as buildings and trade and the whole way that the military system works, including the levies and also characters. For, people have their opinions about that, and so do I, and I'm going to share them in this video. So, yeah, stick around if you want to hear my opinions on all these different mechanics, because that's kind of the point of this video. That's kind of what we're doing here. But anyway, without further ado, let us go and jump in on the very first one here is buildings. What do I rate buildings as? Well, for starters, it's a clear upgrade over EU4. EU4, you had, what, maximum of 16 building slots? Maybe even less than that? I don't recall. I think I play a lot of Anbanar and they add extra building slots, if I remember rightly. Either way, that's not the way that it works in EU5. In EU5, you have your buildings, and there are very specific requirements for these buildings. Like, some buildings can only be built in towns or cities, like this protected harbour. Some buildings, unlike any of the ones that I've currently got as an example, can only be built in rural areas. Some buildings are cities only. And instead of buildings being tech-gated, which, I mean, they are as well, buildings are taking resources. In the early days of EU4, they took mana as a resource as well as cash to build, but now we're looking at way more than that. We're looking at needing masonry and stone and wood and all of these different materials just to construct the building in the first place. And that also links entirely into the trade system, which, of course, we're going to get into and talk about as well. But these buildings, they take populations to work in them. So, for example, with this Tools Guild, we've got the 200 burghers as its building requirement. And while, just like in EU4, you can upgrade buildings over time, so the Tools Guild is going to upgrade into the Tools Workshop, and then into the Iron Foundry, and then finally into the Iron Mill. And that's similar to EU4. You have these progressions as well. But also, you don't need to just have, one. If you build a workshop in EU4, you have a workshop in a province. You can't build a second workshop in that province. That's not how the game works. But here, unless there is a limit placed on the building by the game, which I don't believe the Tools Workshop is because of this symbol, I believe, you can build multiple levels of tools workshops. Some buildings have a limit of, say, 5 or 10 or whatever. Some have a limit of 1. But this system is just such a huge upgrade over EU4 in, I want to say, every single metric possible. Literally every single metric possible. There are also production methods, which you may remember from Victoria 3. It's one of the only mechanics taken from Victoria 3 to go into EU5, with Vic 2 being a much stronger influence on the game, of course. So while we haven't got that here, actually we do. The Tools Guild here, you can build your tools either with iron or with stone or with, I want to say that's copper and sulfur. I don't know all of the goods icons off the top of my head, unfortunately. But you have various production methods that you can work with. Now, the cons of this building system. If you are a very, very large country, this building system is going to be kind of unwieldy. There is, however, an AI option for you if you want to automate the construction of buildings. And while I do think that it needs a little bit of work, because right now I believe it actually just takes all of your money. If you can say to the AI, spend so that I have 1,000 gold left in my bank at all times, never go below 1,000 gold, then I think the system is honestly just kind of perfect. Because if you are playing, for example, Yuan at the start of the game, you're not going to have the ability to mess with all of the different pieces all over the place, and you are going to need that AI. So just a little bit of scaling gets a little bit difficult. Later game, I think people will be turning on the AI. Early game, though, messing with building individual buildings is actually like a lot of fun. And here is something from my own video where I'm playing as Florence, and I'm looking at building the Tailors Guild, because the Tailors Guild is going to make me a lot of money because Florence is really good with its fine silks, and I'm going to build multiple levels of it in Florence, and it's just a good mechanic. I think it is definitely S. It's in the S's. Whether I would put it in S or S plus, I'm not sure. That scaling issue that I talked about, I think maybe drops it down to S, because again, it doesn't really work at scale when you are a colossally large country with a lot of income. Keeping up to date with your buildings is going to take more time than the game has running at like 3 speed. You just don't have the click speed for it. But other than that, I think buildings at S tier is perfectly reasonable. On to trade though, and this is another one that is straddling the S's. So I think for some people, they're going to immediately say, why not S plus? Why not S plus? It should immediately be S plus. The trade system is perfect. No longer do we have a trade system where trade flows only in one direction, inevitably leading into the English Channel or Genoa or Venice. No longer is that the case. Trade can flow back and forth. Individual trade routes for individual goods can go back and forth. If you own 2 trade zones, you can trade goods back and forth. It's totally possible. It's totally doable, and it works phenomenally. There is 2 issues, though. One, the UI for trading is it's not there yet. It truly isn't there yet. To set up trades is actually just kind of finicky, to the point where, personally, what I was doing is just turning on the automated AI-assisted trade for me, please, baby, and doing maybe a couple of valuable trades myself, maybe for goods of a strategic nature, let's say. Or, again, in my Florence game, I'm maybe trading for to bring in some alum or some dyes to really make my cloth factories work just that little bit more efficiently. But yeah, the ability to trade all your goods back and forth, it just works really, really well there. And I think for that, it's S tier. But yeah, the UI really needs to be brought up to a level where it is fun to interact with. So, because right now it's like the mechanics of it are great, but the interaction, the user experience, it just isn't there just yet. So, if they get that sorted out, I definitely see it being S right now. Sorry, I see it being S plus right now. I think S works. It's where it's at. Now we're gonna have a look at 3 economy thingamajigs all in a row. I think I'll do all of these at the same time. So to start off with, we have loans, and I'll bring you to the income screen here from my game as Florence. Loans. In EU4, when you took a loan, it was magic money, let's say. You did have an amount of inflation that you had to pay. Not inflation, interest that you had to pay on top of your loan, and that's still here, but the money kind of came out of nowhere, and that is definitely not the case anymore. This money does not come out of nowhere. This money is the surplus bank, the amount of money that your estates have. Your loans come directly from your estates. So if you've been enriching your estates, if you don't tax them so much, then you have more money available as loans when you really need it. That, for me, elevates it massively. Loans as well are way harsher than they used to be. In E4, I believe the the base amount of interest was like 4 or 5. And in E5, you're looking at 10% interest. So if you take a 100 ducat loan, you're going to be paying 110 ducats. I think that's how the math works. I'm pretty sure it's how the math works. It seems a little bit less harsh than I imagined. Maybe it's not. Either way, you're paying interest. You're paying a lot of interest. So this is a big step up from EU4. Is it perfect? I can't actually fault it. The thing is, I don't think loans as a concept should be something that, like, yes, this is absolutely perfect. Can't believe it can be made any better. I'm going to put in S+. I don't think it belongs in those lofty heights of S+, where we have things like the cabinet and control and estates. And honestly, the loans, as they are, kind of fit into the estates mechanic. They just fit there. They're a part of the estates. As well, of course, you need to talk about the banks taking on your loans, and so you having to pay off the banks instead. I mean, the banking countries instead of your estates. But where would I put it? I think probably I'll put it in A+, because it just kind of belongs there. But for inflation, this one is not getting an A+. I think inflation in the game is a little bit too easy. Essentially, the way that you deal with inflation is by taking your minting slider and turning it up just to the point where you're not gaining interest. For most countries, that's going to be about a third of the way through. It depends on as well if you have a gold mine of your own or if you are importing gold or something like that as well. But essentially, you're not going to, the more I pull this slider up, the more money I make, but then inflation goes up. If I lower the slider, inflation will go down. It's kind of basic, but I do think it is a lot more realistic. It works on a real-world kind of level, far more than in EU4. So on that, yeah, it's definitely an improvement, but it is kind of basic, and there's not much gameplay there. So I think I'm going to pop it in B. And if we remember, B means decent mechanics, significant improvement over EU4, but could still be better. I think that's exactly where it belongs. And now for the tax and expenses sliders. This one's an A. This one's an A. Yeah, it's just straight up an A. I really like the sliders. I like sliders. I know that it's a bit of a controversial statement at this point. Not everyone likes sliders, but I think they work. I like dragging my little diamond across the screen to get more money or to pay less money or anything along those lines. I think the economy system in the game, or the economy tab, works really well. I think the UI could do with some touch-ups, but that is something that they are going to improve just throughout the life of the game, I would imagine. I believe there is also improvements since I played. Of course, they invited a few YouTubers back to give more critique on the UI, and there's nothing specifically wrong with this. I think it could be better. But definitely, A works really, really nicely. On to development, though, and development is a really, really good mechanic. If that's not what I wanted to show... this, however, is what I wanted to show. This is the development of... I mean, I grabbed this from Generalist Gaming's video. Don't tell him. This is what development does to your country. Every location, if you have 31.01 development, will get these modifiers. That's not everything, though. Actually, it is everything. He must have added the thing as well. When playing the game back in May, the development did not increase food production. And that was a really big deal for Italy. It was starving, essentially. And I was given this hotfix for food production, scaling by development on a 1-to-1 scale, and fix the issue. Obviously, development is a completely different beast than EU4. They are not the same mechanics. Their only similarity is the name. Development works a lot more like development in, for example, Crusader Kings 3, or honestly, Prosperity would be another one from EU4. essentially development goes up slowly, and it will change various things like how many levels of RGO you can build, right? So this one's got +3 to its RGO level, because every level is like 1,000 people. So this is plus, +3, +3 levels, +3,000 people. And essentially, it just works. It just works. It's a way to have different areas of the map um, give more without just increasing the population, without increasing the development points. Um, Obviously, there are multiple levels to seeing how good a specific location is. Their population, their RGOs, the amount of buildings there are, and the development, as well as all of the different, vegetation, topography, etc. And development just fits in snugly, neatly. There's not much to say here other than it kind of just works. After the food production was added, it just works. That's all I can really say about it. It just works, and for that reason, A plus mechanic. As I said, I nabbed that from Journalist Gaming's video. If you want to know how good roads and canals are, he'd probably also be the best one to look at for that. He utilized canals in his career run really to amazing effect. But also roads. I mean, they're in the same kind of um, mechanic as control, and really they probably should be listed in with this control and proximity mechanics. Um, but if we have a look at the Norway example of that was given on Christmas Day, there was a dev diary where Johan basically went and played Norway, and one of the things he was doing was building a road from Oslo to Nidaros. It cost him quite a lot of money, but essentially it lets him increase the control all throughout this area, and it'll spread out from here as well. It essentially just reduces the proximity cost between different locations. And if you have lower proximity cost, then that means that your control can be higher. If the control is higher, you get more stuff out of your locations. And road building, I think, really should be. I only have one issue with it, right? I love the fact that it exists. I love the fact that the way that you do it, I think, works fine. I'm glad that we don't have the imperative situation where we've got our armies doing all of the road building. The UI for it is fine. Honestly, the cost for it is also fine. My only issue with it is you can't really see them on the map. They're very, very nondescript. And to show that, I have another one here. 500 years of progress. We can see here the roads, and they're just kind of they're just they're kind of there. They kind of blend in with the map, and honestly, you can sometimes mistake them for uh, location borders. So I would be happier if they stood out a bit more, especially as this is like a paved road. Obviously, we've got gravel roads, we've got paved roads, even railway lines in the later stage of the game. But essentially, my only issue with them is I wish they like stood out more on the map. But mechanically they're perfect. A plus, A plus. Pop demands, food, etc. I just mentioned my Italy example where I needed more food. But when I was playing, again, I only played around about 100 years as the maximum length of time I played any of my campaigns. Pop demands for other things, like they wanted clothes or furniture or whatever they desired goods wise, never felt like a strong enough driving force behind my trade. It just never seemed to affect me. And maybe this is because I played relatively homogenous countries and didn't do too much conquest outside of culture group. Maybe if I go and conquer a completely separate culture group, they are going to be more unhappy, and so I will have to um, assuage their demands just a little bit more than I had been. Maybe in that case, there is an argument to be made that pop demands are working perfectly. When you have a content population, though, their demands, even if they're not met, just don't seem like a big enough driving force. Um, Food, though, food felt very, very impactful. The way you speed up population growth is by the amount of stored food in a province, in an area, in a market even, and this food's kind of stored on all three of those levels. If you have, say, 5 years of stored food, you will have more pop growth than if you had 2 years of stored food. Um, so, in that regard, food demands are really, really important, and building granaries probably going to be the play, as long as you can fill them, of course. But for goods other than food, I didn't feel it. I think we're gonna go with a B on that one. I think we're gonna go with a B. All right, controversy time. Controversy time. We're gonna be looking at Casus Belli, and essentially, if you want the biggest critique of Casus Belli's, then you're probably looking for Playmaker's video. Personally, I disagree with him though. All right, so for CBs, if you are in the HRE, you cannot no CB. And no CB seems like the standard way to expand outside of like these specific scenarios. If you're in the HRE, what you would need to do is wait for your parliament debate to come up, and then get your estate satisfaction above 50%, and then ask them to prepare for war, which gives you an insult CB on another country, with an insult CB taking land costs twice as much. It's a way to keep the HRE more disunited for longer, I think. But other than that, no CB seems like the standard way forward, unless you are looking at attacking someone of a different religion, or if you are the Ottomans and you get claims for free. And for me personally, while this may have been quite controversial when it was shown off, I think it's fine. I like that getting a claim CB is much harder than in EU4. I think that's really, really good. Um, I do think it slows down blobbing, and slowing down blobbing is probably going to be not probably, it is a good thing to do. Slowing down that rapid blobbing is going to be a good thing to do, and this kind of does that. Are there improvements that I think could be made? Sure. I would like more CBs, even if those CBs didn't let you take land. But for what it wants to be, what the game wants to be, what the trajectory of your game is going to be, I think it just works. I'm going to pop this in A. Another controversial one is peace deals, and essentially this was one of the first dev diaries that got heavily disliked. Minus 306 are respectfully disagrees, and I didn't disagree with it. I was I'm happy, right? There is no real big changes from EU4, and that's, I guess, maybe why there was so much dissatisfaction. But for me, peace deals in EU4 were just fine. They worked perfectly well, and I didn't feel the need for them to change. People were asking for things like bilateral peace treaties, which Yuan shut down multiple times. And that argument has come back up now with Victoria 3 releasing their Charters of Commerce with their new peace system, which is all of the reasons why bilateral peace treaties should not be in EU5, because it's actually terrible. But yeah, no, peace deals, they just work. There's nothing new, there's nothing groundbreaking about them, but there didn't need to be. You got more peace options. You have things like repatriating your slaves or your cultural slaves. If you're France and you've been slave raided by the Moroccans for a generation, you can go to war with Morocco and repatriate those people. And I think that's fantastic. There's nothing for me to complain about with peace deals. Um, is there more that can be added? Is there more peace deal options that can be added? Yeah, of course. Um, you know, just off the top of my head, I have gone to war with country B um, to say, I need you to embargo country C. That could totally be a thing. And yeah, B plus is perfectly fine. New levy system though, fantastic. I love it. I actually love it so much. I love it so much. Raising your armies from the populations on the ground. So every time you raise an army, that you will see immediately your pop number drop by however many people you just raised. And so, if that army then gets stack wiped, sure, you can raise a new levy. But you're not getting those pops back. They're dead. They're gone. Your country's population has just dropped, and population is your most valuable resource, right? In the entire game, population is the most valuable resource, and they just died. So they're not coming back. The way that they're raised, I love. I am a huge fan as well of the looks of them on the map, though I do still think that the unit models should be a bit larger. But yeah, no, they're just it's just an S tier system. The new levy system is fantastic. Manpower though, this is the professional armies side of things, and professional armies are around about 10 times as strong as levies per person. Manpower has been controversial at multiple points. For example, when the Ottomans, when the Islam Dev Diary dropped, there was the complaints about the one of the buttons that they get is free manpower. But unlike when you raise levies and immediately lose population, that's not what manpower is. Manpower is gained through buildings, and that are staffed by pops, of course, staffed by your soldiers, and then you will gain a slow trickle of manpower into, on the top of your screen. You will have some, not here, not here, here. You'll have some manpower at the top of your screen. There's 1,000,000 men here. This is not pops, not yet. When you raise an army, when you turn this into dudes on the map, then it is pops. When you are reinforcing those troops, then it is pops. When you are having those troops die, then it is pops. But while it's up here, this is potential population. And I think that makes all the difference. I like the separation there. I think it works. Having this be a potential works really well. I like the way that it's gained. I think a lot of countries, though, have no access to this mechanic at the start of the game. Takes them a good maybe 20, 30 years to really start getting any at all. And then when you start getting some, it's trickles. It really is trickles. If you are a country with a city as your capital, you can build a sergeantry, which will give you, I think, like 10 manpower a month. And then with that 10 manpower, if you build a regiment of, I don't know, men at arms, that regiment is going to cost 1 manpower a month. Just in general, you're costing 1 manpower a month. And yeah, no, there's nothing about it that I dislike. I think as far as the manpower situation goes, I think it's going to be very exciting to see it play out in multiplayer. Like, who will try and stick with levies, who will try and use professional armies. I think if I was to say anything, I would say as soon as professional armies come in, that 20 years after the start of the game, whoever gets to that first in a multiplayer scenario is going to have such a massive boost in power over literally all of their rivals because of that 10-to-1 power difference. If that was kind of softened a bit and made it so that professional armies wasn't this absolute soul-destroying, crushing, world-conquering force at the start of the game, then I'd probably be a little bit more happy. but mechanically, I think it works really well. We're going with an A+ on that one. And I think I did just talk about the regiment system in that as well, so we're going A+ there. Naval Mechanics, though. What we've got with Naval Mechanics is essentially linking into control. Naval combat, I don't really have much of an opinion on just yet. I worry that the same issue of frontage is going to be present in EU5 as it is in EU4. But I don't know enough. I didn't do enough naval combat. I do know that you can raise levies as boats as well. But essentially, you're going to use those guys for transporting troops and nothing else. They die like 30-1 against a professional galley, and it's not close. But essentially, what I'm going to talk about with the naval mechanics is the way that it works with control, especially through maritime presence, because control isn't just via roads. Some people, there is no road from Stockholm to Helsinki. I mean, unless you go all the way up. But you're going to use your navy to propagate control across the Gulf of Bothnia, the Gulf of Gulf of Finland. Sorry. I'm going to get hate for that one by my wife. I'm sorry. Anyway, yeah. So proximity will traverse through the water, and the higher your maritime presence, the more that proximity cost comes down. So you will be able to increase control in your overseas provinces, your locations, with higher maritime presence, far more so than you would with low maritime presence. And I'm going to reference Generalist Gaming's video again, though I can't show it without his permission, and I haven't asked for it. I'm sure he would give it, but I haven't asked for it, so I won't. He was playing, obviously, as Korea, and was building roads across Korea and canals across Korea to try and get control up in this direction. But he also really focused on maritime presence. And so his proximity to the locations up in the north of Korea were cheaper to go around in boats over the water because he just focused on getting that control up, getting that maritime presence up, getting that proximity down, and it was cheaper to sail around than it was to walk across. So yeah, maritime presence is a huge deal. And mechanically, I think it is... Again, I just love the whole proximity mechanic. I think, in general, proximity mechanics deserve to be in S tier. Though I don't know, again, if this is regarding the naval warfare. Judging by where it is in this list, it's a conflict mechanic, so we'll pop it to B+, because I don't know enough about how naval combat works yet. But anyway, moving on to supply and attrition. This one, a little bit controversially, I'm going to put C. I think it's weak. Unfortunately, when I played the game, it seemed like the units that were supposed to be carrying my supplies just weren't necessary. The auxiliary units just weren't necessary. A system was added whereby food and supplies could be transported automatically 2 tiles away from your closest controlled location. So essentially, what I was doing was, instead of marching my army throughout my enemy's entire country from end to end, essentially what I was doing was, well, this fort here is on the border, so I'm going to go sit here, and food and supplies is automatically going to be transported from this location just here. And I never ran out of food. I never took attrition. I never had any issues whatsoever. And that felt a little bit weak. Maybe later on in the game, when large armies are present, when you are marching further inland into your enemy's territory, maybe then we're gonna get some issues. Maybe then we're gonna get some pushback. But from what I played, supply and attrition just was not an element that I had to worry about. And that's a little disappointing. Just a little bit disappointing. But I don't know. I really don't know yet. Hopefully later on in the game, when you're using professional armies, that will really come out and be present. But right now, I just didn't see it. Though I will say, I hate supply issues in EU4. So not experiencing those issues, that was kind of an upgrade. But it felt a little bit ahistorical to lose literally 0 men while sieging a fortress. Those places were death camps. They were not good places to be. Mercenaries and prisoners of war. When you stack wipe an enemy army, you get an event which gives you some options. Do I want to murder everybody? Do I want to sell the people back, or do I want to let them go free? And you can get some money, you can get some less antagonism, or your enemy can just lose pops. And in that regard, though, POW system is fun, although it's a little spammy when your enemy is running around with multiple little levies, or if you're fighting a coalition of enemies and they're all got different armies, and you're just walking around with a professional force and stack wipe after stack wipe, pop up after pop up, and that could use a little bit of work. Maybe at the start of the war, how do I want to deal with prisoners of war? Choose one of the 3 options, and then you don't get that pop up again. That would work really, really nicely. But other than that, I think it's great to add to the game. I wasn't expecting it. It is obviously an improvement over literally nothing of its type in EU4. Perfect. Mercenaries. There is 2 things here. Firstly, the way that mercenaries work is they are on a country-to-country basis, right? If I am playing as Milan, I've built my professional force, I can say, oh, I don't need this army right now. I'm going to put them up for hire, and then another country can hire those troops. In EU4, that was called condottieri, and I would, as Milan, have control over that army. That's not how it works here, though. Here, if Venice buys my Milanese troops to go to war with Austria, Venice is going to be the one controlling that army. As a multiplayer fan, that's a little disappointing because often we used condottieri as a way to spectate wars. If there is a way to spectate wars completely separate of condottieri or mercenaries, fantastic, and that is not an issue whatsoever. But also, it was kind of fun to get involved in a war where the stakes for you were very, very low. And obviously, it is a trade-off, right? If those mercenaries die, those are my pops that are dying. That's not Venice's troops. That's Venice is using them, and they may abuse them, but that's a trade-off, right? And that's fun. That's really cool. I will get money, but I am spending people for that money, which is certainly a trade-off. But I mean, I don't even know if there is a bug. That's just a really cool mechanic. I'm gonna pop that in A because why not? Sieges and occupations. We did talk about this already a little bit, but I guess to add one more thing, looking at sieges, early game, there's too many. It's not. Sieges take a little bit too long. It felt like, though probably it realistically took quite long. And I don't know how I feel about the actual gameplay behind it, right? Taking my army and I'm just gonna sit them there on your location for a very long time. It's not exactly the most engaging gameplay in the world. However, the alternative is worse, right? And the controversial part about sieges is people asking for a CK3 style siege system because they mistakenly believe that it is better. They don't like the random dice rolls, right? You have every 30 days, or I think it's 20 days as a baseline in EU5. You have a dice roll every 20 days where some random event will happen. For example, an outbreak of disease in the siege camp, or some of the supplies have gone missing in the siege, in the fortress itself. And A lot of people don't like this random chanciness. I think it's fantastic. I think the alternative, not having it is worse. I think having a bar that will just tick down and you know for a fact that, the siege will end on this day no matter what, I think is awful. I do like that random chance because every siege should be different. Sieging two identical fortresses should not take an identical amount of time because, things happen. And those things are represented by those chances instead of, having the mechanics be as granular as individual dudes inside the fortress, making things happen in that regard. So I'm a fan of the siege system. As much as I complain about it in EU4, and as much as it is the same in EU5, I still think it is better than any alternative. As for occupations, if you take the capital of the province, so every province has a provincial capital. If you take that location and any fortress in that province as well, then the entire province gets occupied by you. It is the same system from Imperator, and that system works fantastically well. It is simply an A+ system, and that might be controversial. I don't care. It is great. UI, the user interface. It's another one that's quite controversial, isn't it? Here is a screen of the UI, and I think there are a couple of things that I will say that I do not like immediately. For starters, I don't like this stuff down here. And I notice that you can't even see what I'm looking at. That doesn't help. I got a new monitor, and the new monitor is 4K. So I'm still not 4K. It's 2K. So I'm still working out how to use it. Either way, I don't like this stuff at the bottom. These are your hotkeys. So Control 1, Control 2, Control 3, and these ones are armies. So if he presses 1 on his keyboard, it will go and select this army. However, this was also in EU4, and I didn't have a massive freaking UI button on the bottom of my screen. This is also the place where any international organization you are in will show up. I don't like that. I don't think that should be there either. If I was to say where I think these things should be, the international organizations should be down in the bottom right corner where they are in EU4. And I think these hotkeys should either be in the outliner, which is fine, or they just shouldn't be seen. Outliner's fine, though. Show me another panel down here. Obviously you're scrolling down anyway. Another little selection, another little group with all of your hotkeyed stuff. That would work out just fine for me. But yeah, I don't like this at all. It's really, really ugly and bad and nasty, and don't like it. Map modes are opened up by pressing this little symbol here, and then you get a bunch of your map modes. And it's really quite bad, and I don't like them here. I want my map modes over in the bottom right corner so I can hide them behind my face when I stream. Look, at the end of the day, EU4 did map modes perfectly. EU4 had them in the right place. EU4 had a system that worked great. And this was changed, it seems, for change's sake, because it was a flat downgrade on every level. So UI for this, bad. UI for this, bad. Also, when you are at war, instead of the war button being in the bottom right, like in EU4, instead it is shown as an alert, which is just a downgrade. Let me see if I can find where I'm at war in here. Yeah, I'm at war with whoever this is. And so I've got a banner. I've got an alert at the top of my screen, and that's just not how it should be. It's just a downgrade. And Yeah, so this should be in the bottom right. These IOs shouldn't be down here. These map modes shouldn't be down here. Those things are just kind of awful. Those three elements I really heavily dislike, and I really hope they change them. The trade UI situation really could do with some work. I would prefer a bigger flag here instead of the face, but I'm also kind of fine with the face. Like, it is what it is. Characters exist. So, I'm not going to complain too heavily about that. The top bar stuff, though, I'm happy with. Age of Tradition stuff over here, I mean, this doesn't need to be quite so large. If I could have just, like, this button here be, like, just across the side, and then use all of this space for a music player, for example, would suit me just fine. The outliner, I think, looks worse than E4's outliner. Because all of these little banners are kind of floating instead of with E4, you actually had like them all contained within a box, and it looked good. Oh, this one hurts because there's a lot of UI things that work quite nicely, but then there's a lot that is just not so great. And this battle UI is just a flat downgrade from EU4, for example. Like, for starters, it takes up the entire height of your screen, which is bad. If these guys' names get too large, it moves the faces across the screen, which is bad. Having these battles be vertical is bad. Just, I think everything about this just is a downgrade from EU4 as well. So, God, it feels kind of bad, but we're scrolling down, and I think battles, not the battles. I think UI is like a D mechanic. Is that our first D? It's our second D. It's our second D. Oh gosh. Look, it belongs where it belongs, Let's talk about something slightly less controversial, though. The 3D characters. Look, when they were first introduced in June, God, that's like a year and 19 days ago. When they were first introduced back in June, they looked kind of bad, right? It doesn't look great. It doesn't look great. This one looked pretty good, though, to be fair. They didn't look good. I would say they're looking a lot better nowadays. Like, this is from the Ottoman dev diary, flavor diary, sorry, that came out maybe 2 weeks ago or so, 3 weeks ago, something like that. I think they're looking better, and I think they integrate a little bit better with their backgrounds, with the UI and such, and I don't have so much of a problem now with them, especially after I played the game, because when playing, they really didn't feel like an issue to worry about. When playing the game, the characters didn't stand out as an egregious kind of element that I really hated, right? They weren't something that I was like, yay, characters exist. Like, there was no like huge positive there, but they also just didn't take away anything. There was no detriment to them existing either. I love characters in the way that they work with family trees and dynasties, and making that whole personal union gameplay so much more transparent is an absolute win over EU4, like by so much, leaps and bounds. Will that make personal union farming a little bit too easy? Maybe. It's something that might need to be balanced. But as far as their existence, there was never a chance that EU5 wasn't going to use them, right? This character system, I think, was made obviously for CK3, utilized in Imperator Rome, utilized in Victoria 3, now utilized in EU5, and I'd say of all of those games, Imperator came out first, but they used CK3, which was already in development, used that character system. Victoria 3 used that character system, right? This is CK3's character system. And they obviously spent a lot of money in making this work, making, sons look like their fathers, etc. And of all of those games, Imperator, CK3, Victoria 3, and EU5, they look the best in EU5. That's controversial. I know that for a fact. Some people really liked what they look like in CK3. In CK3, they have a massive uncanny valley issue for me, way more so than they did in EU5. And again, I played the game, I've seen them in action, I've seen them moving, and I don't get as much uncanny valley issues. Maybe it's because they're less in focus, right? They're not as large on your screen. They're not as in your face. When you have an event pop up in CK3, the guy's dancing there, and he's got his hand in his face in his hands, and he's got all this stuff going on, and he's a big focus. And in EU5, that's not the case. And I think, they're a bit more subtle here. And they work on that level. So they are the best version of the character system that Paradox has yet made. And there's nothing about them that I think is egregiously awful. There's nothing that I would say I'm so in favor of and is beautiful and I love it and such. But there's nothing that is egregious. So we're going to pop in B. We'll go B. Now, something that really matters to me, like a lot, multiplayer. I play a lot of multiplayer. I played multiplayer on Sunday. I will play multiplayer again tonight in 4 hours or so. I really, really enjoy multiplayer. And I really need multiplayer to be good. It's correct for it to be in red, because there is so little we know about the game when it comes to multiplayer. So this is honestly, it doesn't matter what I put in here. There is no way to know. There are a couple of things that we do know, though. Firstly, there is a chat, right? Imperator did not have a chat. It apparently Yuan was waiting for CK3 to develop the chat functionality, and then he was going to steal that and put it in Imperator. Paraphrasing and word of mouth and blah blah blah. And that never happened, so Imperator never got a chat. CK3 didn't get a chat. Victoria 3 didn't get a chat. EU5 is bringing back multiplayer chat. Hallelujah. Fantastic. I can't believe we got 3 games in a row without a goddamn chat. The fuck, Paradox? Are you out of your minds? Thank you, Yuan, for putting a chat in the game. It's like the bare minimum, and I can't believe it was 3 games went by without it before this get crazy to me. Absolutely crazy to me. But we're now getting a chat. Fantastic. When I played, though, the chat was very, very basic. There was not much there. So hopefully we get all of the functionality from EU4's chat in EU5. Obviously, I want to have the ability to make individual rooms. I want the ability to whisper. I want the ability to roll a dice if I want to. All of that kind of stuff. I hope that that's in. All I know so far is there is a chat. But honestly, that's kind of all we know, right? There was no Nakama. I don't believe there will be a Nakama, but I don't know for sure. When you reload a game from, if you're, doing your second session, we have a lobby to start the game. Fantastic. I can't believe we went how many games without a frickin' lobby. Hot joining. Pause the game and prevent anybody from clicking buttons while I hot join somebody, please. I can't believe we went 3 games without that happening. That's insane to me. The ability to have somebody hot join the game and while the rest of the players are still playing, and and making changes while a dude is loading the save, and you expected that to work. What the fuck is wrong with you, Paradox? How would you expect that to work? It never has. Nobody has made that happen, even a single time, outside of, like, a LAN connection. It just doesn't work. Stop trying, please, I beg. But yeah, all of this is, like, my hopes from multiplayer rather than mechanics that are in, so there's literally no point in me putting anything here. I'm just gonna leave it where it is. There's nothing here to critique yet. I suppose it has a chat functionality. Already an improvement over Victoria 3. Already an improvement over CK3. Already an improvement over Imperator Rome. So, I don't know. Well, I'll put that in like a C, whatever. But my overall impression of the game, I'm going to keep this part short, because what I would say is, if the few glaring weaknesses that were there in the game when I played it back in May, if they were fixed, the performance, for example, if the performance was made more performant, if the AI was a bit more aggressive, if antagonism was more of a roadblock for players, and the game released in the state I played with those things fixed, it would be a better release product, both mechanically, both the amount of flavor it has, both the overall quality of the game, how fun it is, etc. It would be a better release product than Vic 3, than CK3, than Imperator Rome. I didn't play much Hoy. Stellaris, I think, was a week launch, but I can't remember. Wasn't there for the launch of EU4, so I can't comment. It would be a stronger release product than those 3 games. I think that says enough on its own, right? The game was fun, right? I played 85 hours. Played 85 hours, and I had fun. I want to play more. This wasn't a chore for me to play. It wasn't something where I was forcing myself to play just for content. I came away from my 2-week period with the game wanting more. My hype level for the game's release increased. The game's good. And I've now not had it for over 2 months. And I want more. I think that speaks for itself, no? Overall impression of the game is there are elements that need to be improved. This tier list pretty much says exactly that. But for what it is, right now, this is an S tier game. This is Yuan's magnum opus. This is Paradox's magnum opus. And I think if future Paradox games don't look at E5 and really heavily take inspiration from it, then they're screwing themselves, because this game is a winner. It truly, truly is. And I can't wait to play more of it. But anyway, this is our tier list. This is what we've got. Our S+, Pops, the Cabinet, Control, and Estates, to the surprise of probably no one. Our S's, the Culture, International Organizations, Buildings, Trade, the new Levy System, and my overall impression of the game. Our A's, the map, basically just the map in general, social classes, diseases and plagues, advances, parliament. I'm not going to read it all out. You can see it there. This is my final tier list. If you haven't already made yourself a tier list, if you haven't used this this bloody Google sheet to do this yourself, I encourage you to try. I encourage you to have a look and share Share with me what you've got. Hop on my Discord and share your tier lists, or I've just opened up on my channel community posts, so you can post as a community member on my channel. Apparently, do that. That could be fun. Let me know what your tier lists are. If there's anything in here that you think is absolutely like, how can you think that ages are an A+ tier system? Like, what the hell is wrong with you, Lambert? Let me know. I'm curious. I'm curious as to what everyone's opinions are. So leave them in the comment section below. Post them on my wall. Post them in my Discord. And yeah, let's have a conversation. It will be fun. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll be back tomorrow, probably, with another EU5 video, because it'll be Wednesday, and there's going to be a dev diary, so I'm looking forward to that. I hope you guys are too. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and stick around for more EU5 content. Bye-bye.